Story time, bitches!
Hey guys, welcome back to the Hell If I Know podcast, episode 6, I believe. That's pretty bad if I'm the one that edits and uploads it and I don't remember what we're on. I think we're on 6.
We're on 8. Fuck if I know. Dude, I don't fucking know.
I think we're on 6. If we're not, then...
I'm on YouTube. I can check right now.
I was about to say, somebody can check. It's not like we're recording this so closed down we don't know what's going on in the outside world.
Yep.
We're not militia members.
Relevant joke from earlier. But yeah, today we're talking about stories in games and how much games have changed as far as storytelling.
This actually comes from someone that we both follow on Twitch, who we're friends with in real life. I'm going to put a link to her channel down in the description below. You should check her out. She's actually a really good streamer. She's recently got her sub button, so that's kind of cool. So go check her out and support her stream.
If you want to.
It's interesting to see, like, in the grand scale of literature and film, like, film is probably an example of almost like video games, how much the story changed from its onset in the early 1900s to, like, the 1930s and 40s of the studio system.
Yeah.
To even today with what we consider a blockbuster good story. Literature has been, like, this consistent thing from, like, Shakespeare to, like, James Patterson and all that stuff. Stories can stay, I think, similar in nature. Gaming has, like, the most exponential change, I think, from stories of the onset. Like, you look at Mario and you look at games like Mario and Pong. I mean, Pong arguably had a story. The story was who got punched in the face first on the couch. To today with games like, and again, I go back to our fandom, like Fallout 4, or even games like, you know, like
I would
the
argue
Zelda
that
games, like the Zelda games that coming from a company from Nintendo who had a plumber rescuing a princess from a turtle dragon to the newest Zelda game, like those levels of story. It's interesting to see that games have become complex in that way. Like even God of War has a complex story to it.
Yeah, at the same time, I think it doesn't seem like the storytelling aspect, the final ending of a story, I don't think that has changed at all. It seems like.
Well, there always should be, unless you have a game like Halo, which isn't supposed to resolve, you should always come to a resolution. Like, even the Fallout games, because they're not linked, they all resolve to something. An action you take in a story that's told comes to a resolution. The idea of who ends up in power, or where do you end up, or what does the lone wanderer, the lone survivor, you know, the sole survivor, discover about themselves or humanity in that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the Mario games, the Zelda games, fucking
Danky Kang.
I don't know so much about Danky Kang, but Skyrim, Jak and Daxter, Jak 2 and 3, you know, they all have kind of the same ending, which is you're saving somebody or you're saving the world.
True.
And there's very few games that deviate from that whole story.
Interesting games with story are games that seem to simplify story but get a lot out of it. Like Limbo is a good example of that. Like those games that almost make you question your existential self, I think are always interesting games. Games that, and it's done really well by indie games because indie games just simply put out a visual novel like
Firewatch.
Firewatch is a good one. Firewatch is one of my favorite games of the last 10 years. What was that game? Was it Unravel, where you're like the little yarn character? That game was like watching Ray play that. I've never seen Ray look more existentially confused at the end of a game before, and he genuinely looked like he had done some deep thought. Like, there's a poem that's slowly built throughout the game that you see at the end.
Yeah.
And the poem talks about how, like, life is one string of yarn in many strings of yarn, and when it comes to its end and unravels, at least it left something behind it. Kind of like that. And it's like, that's wild. Like, I wouldn't expect a game to say that to me. But I think that's interesting to see, though, like, the idea of just saving something, I think, is something everybody aspires to do. There's the idea of being the hero, being important, but also in the same way doing good. I think inherently there's part of humanity that wants to do good when they escape from the world and when you're doing escapist kind of activities, like watching movies. And I think I'm going to reference movies a lot because I know a lot about them, but you look at, like, even a good crossover of that would be L.A. Noire. L.A. Noire is a video game that's based around the idea of the noir detective film of, like, Casablanca or, you know, every Humphrey Bogart film ever. And there weren't a lot of them because he actually wasn't in films for that long. But it's that sense of building a hero who's flawed. I think that's something else that's come out in games now is, you know, it used to be you had superheroes and you had heroes that were, like, perfect. the flawed hero has made a serious return in the post-Cold War area of storytelling, where heroes aren't meant to be perfect because we're not perfect, and inherently the people who save people aren't perfect. It's kind of like the idea behind Watchmen. The Watchmen is a good example of that. Who watches the Watchmen? They're doing good things, but what do they do to do the good things? So I think that's kind of interesting to see too, is the flawed heroes. Because even in Fallout, you have to be a flawed hero. You have to make decisions that kill people, and that's just the decisions you have to make.
Well, that's what I was going to go back to was Fallout. I like the fact that, especially in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, not so much Fallout 4 until you get to DLC. There is options to not be the hero. There are options to be the villain. So like joining Caesar's Legion.
Yeah.
Or
I never
or
was able,
turning
I never
on it's probably the tougher way to go. Honestly, it's a slightly more difficult.
You got to wash your hands of a lot
quest.
of morals, though. Like,
yeah. You pretty much have to say, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want.
I'm willing to respect the argument that it's a video game, but I think when you get involved in a story and you get invested in certain things, especially leveling characters like that, you almost feel for the decisions you make. You get connected with certain things. And I think Fallout 4 didn't have the necessary ideas of, like, sides, like the idea of, the free side, like with Yes Man, or, the NCR or stuff like that. It didn't have hardened governmental ideals or the idea of, like, a bigger future. But I think Fallout 4 almost had the idea of... Fallout 4 was much more about what is the humanity of this set out. What is not the policy of this world we live in, what is the humanity of it? Because decisions you made in Fallout 4 didn't necessarily have the same, like, worldly effects, but you lost a lot you could lose interpersonal connections. Like, certain companions would no longer travel with you. Those one-on-one relationships cease to exist because of your personal choices. It was much more of a microorganism than like a macroorganism of what your social sphere was different. There's a good word for it. There's a big college word for you.
Yeah. Once again, we're going to go to Fallout over and over and over again because we played the shit out of it.
It's also a game that you and I have almost equal mutual experience in. So it's a good reference point for the two of us to translate stuff to each other. Because other than that, our games kind of go all over the place.
Yeah, pretty much.
But even I don't know, because I don't count games like Counter-Strike or, multiplayer games in that sense, because there's not really a story there. There's the idea of building to a team. Like, even in World of Warcraft, the whole point of World of Warcraft at the end of it, if you really think about it, you can just play solo and just level a character and just enjoy the character and get invested in the story. Good for you. Overall, the majority of World of Warcraft players are doing dungeon raids. They're building dungeon teams, and that's their goal. They're building a character to do dungeons with.
Yeah.
So, I think single-player games now focus more on story because I think we're looking almost for, in a way, like a pseudo-friendship in friendship in gaming. The idea of, I'm investing time in these virtual people. I want them to be not just reflections of me or just a 2-slot yes-no A-B, Pokemon kind of conversation where I just hold B to go through it all faster. I think you're looking for a realistic portrayal of humanity, or like in the case of Borderlands, which is a good example, that idea of humanity that isn't allowed to exist in this world because we have rules. And what would happen if all the rules and chains were taken off and every nut job on the side of the road was allowed to be a decision maker on par with everyone else just because they had a gun? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a satisfying thing.
Speaking of Pokemon, they've got a lot more story oriented than they have been, especially with X and Y and
X and Y was.
Moon.
I went from playing it on a Game Boy Color to playing it on X and Y. That was the generation gap for me in Pokemon games.
Yeah.
I was amazed the difference, but I was also they managed to keep it intrinsically Pokemon, which I guess you could say intrinsically Pokemon by the fact you caught and battled things, yes, but the fact that your friends would randomly catch up to you and be like, hey, look at this, look what we've done while you were gone, while it was the same shit every time, and your first playthrough it was oh, so they're still alive out there somewhere. Because in the other games, the people you talk to in the first town, you never see them again. But by now, mom's gonna be
the only one you
Oak.
saw was
she's gonna
Gary
be getting that wood.
Yeah.
We all know that's what he did.
Absolutely. I mean, wouldn't you?
He would. Yes, I tried to turn two things we said there into dumb puns, and you're goddamn right.
You're goddamn right.
You're goddamn right.
Yeah, a lot of the story games, because back when fucking Super Mario, obviously, and then Sonic the Hedgehog,
Sonic gotta go fast.
Sonic, we
Bam!
always gotta go fast. Two of the probably most popular gaming franchises ever.
I
They
think
were,
they embraced multiplayer better than some things did. Like a lot of games we see now coming out with like I think you can't talk about multiplayer without talking about like Call of Duty and Battlefield and games like that. But the idea of just party fun, like, and the idea of like anybody can play, like there were games that like you could play with your little siblings, but they weren't games you could share with your parents. Like Nintendo has always been intrinsically good at family entertainment, and I've noticed that most other consoles and companies don't try to touch that.
yeah,
Like Xbox had like some games on like the Kinect that were like that, but you notice they drifted away from it because nobody was gonna beat like everybody played Wii Sports with their family at some point or another. Like everybody did that. We did it when we were over at your house. Like
I remember getting smacked over the head with a fucking,
Wiimote.
yeah. That was always fun. Thanks,
I
Grandma.
watched. Okay, so we had a meeting at work, and we were in a meeting room that was in the university center, which like all the meeting rooms have glass windows, like big glass windows. Two guys sat at a table outside, pulled out a Nintendo Switch, each took a controller and played. That shows you how good Nintendo is. You can just have an impromptu game night with your friends at lunch in college, and nobody looked at them weird. Like if you brought a games case to bring your Xbox with you, you'd look like a psychopath. Like people would look at you and judge the shit out of you. You have a Nintendo Switch? Oh, that guy's cool. He just got a Switch. Like only Nintendo has the power to do that. Like nobody who had a PSP was like, "Man, look at my PSP," you know? Like that didn't happen. I'm sorry, it just didn't.
No, there were some kids that tried to pull that off, but
it's just funny. Like it's just when you see somebody on a Nintendo console, it's just normal. Like when you see them with something else, that's weird. That's how good at the everyman Nintendo has become.
yeah,
It's weird if you think that's weird. Where, like I said, if somebody had a PSP, I would be shocked to find a PSP in the wild these days. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked to find but Microsoft doesn't even have a mobile console. Actually, they did. They had like that weird the first Microsoft Surfaces were basically just mobile Xboxes, but they didn't last long. So it's like
couldn't keep up.
And then like the Switch now, I mean, you hear rumors about mobile consoles. It's like, yeah, good luck. That is one ship that will never sink. Nintendo can always go back to that. They finally made a console, and I think we talked about this our first episode with the E3 thing. They made a console that combined the handheld with the home idea, which the Wiimote Plus or whatever that weird thing was I think that it almost looks like a prototype Switch when you look back at it. It looks like they had the idea in their head, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
We've drifted way away from story, but that's
fine. Going back to story, going back to fucking Mario and Sonic, fucking the stories were always same thing over and over again. Save Princess Peach, fucking defeat Dr. Eggman. Whereas today with games like Fallout and Skyrim and shit like that, there's stories within the main story, or once you've beaten the main story, you can go off and do a new story. So, with Skyrim, after you beat Alduin, you can go off and just fucking become the leader of the Thieves Guild, or, leader of the Dark Brotherhood. Fuck, you could kill the Dark Brotherhood for all you care.
That's what I liked. I think that's something Fallout 4 had an advantage over. I think it especially Fallout 3. I don't, and this is going to sound really bad because I just played through it again. I don't remember. You can't play after the end of Fallout New Vegas, can you? Once you choose your ending and you go through it, that's the end of the line.
Yep, that is the end of the line.
Yeah, that's actually something, and I think it comes from the Skyrim correction because I think Skyrim was after the first two Fallouts. Was the idea of going back and playing afterward? It was like the world doesn't end just because you're done with the main quest, and I think that was something kind of cool about Fallout was the Fallout 4 idea of faction war. It was a never-ending thing. It was the idea of this wasn't just a 4-year gap where you were here. Like, this will continue on after your time. And I liked, again, Preston Garvey's annoying because he's always asking you to set up things.
Fuck, Preston.
I think in a way, though, he is, I don't know how to put it almost, just like, it wasn't super, you didn't have to do it. You could just say, I don't like the Minutemen, I'm not going to help set up. People need to settle up for themselves. But then at the same time, you could be with, the Brotherhood, and you could set up, you never set up anything with the Brotherhood, but the idea of, they came in with the power, I agree with the power kind of thing. Yeah. I think that was, in a way, I'll probably catch hell for this, better than the direct faction idea of you're helping this side too much. We don't like that. Now, to be fair, it had that in Fallout 4 too. If you work for the Railroad for too long, the Brotherhood of Steel doesn't like you. If you work for the the Railroad for too long, the Institute doesn't like you. You're never. I don't think you're. Are you? Can you be vilified by the Institute?
Or you can if you shoot somebody.
If you shoot somebody, and then you have to. I mean, no matter what happens when you go back to destroy them, once at that point you're well past the idea of no return. You're going in there to blow them up, but. It's just interesting. I always liked the Railroad. Just me personally, I get the idea of like the synths aren't people, but like the idea that you could create a human that looked that realistic and had all the memories and stuff, in a way, that was a really like a big question, like a big like existential question idea of if it has all the memories of being a human and all the feelings of being a human.
Yeah.
What physically makes it up doesn't make it a human or not. Your physical traits don't make you human. It's the idea of the common human experience we all share. And I think that was an existential question that a lot of times I think I missed the first time I played through. When I played through it a second time and actually paid attention, I was like, that's deep. Like, that's deep Bethesda.
Bethesda's getting deep again, over and over again. Fucking assholes making us question existence.
Skyrim kind of has that in a way if you look at the opening shot of that whole... If you look at games as movies, they make almost more sense story-wise than they do as a game that you put down and come back to. Like, you look at the whole, like, if you take the cinematic moments of Skyrim, and you look at the opening, the one time that you're completely devoid of choice, if you were wrongly convicted of a crime, and were going to be executed, and were saved, what would you do with the rest of the time you had? That's a really good question, because I think a lot of times you live with the idea of, oh, who cares, I have tomorrow. What if tomorrow wasn't a guarantee all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden it was again? Like, you would go out and do, like, people would be like, you're Dragonborn? You're goddamn right I'm Dragonborn. Like, you would not take no for an answer at that point.
You're stealing all 18 wheels of cheese? You're goddamn right I'm stealing all 18 wheels of cheese. I'm going to eat them while I fight this dragon.
I never understood, like, the dragons know you're Dragonborn. Like, they know just talking to you. You would think Alduin would be like, yeah, man, if I was going to come back and I knew the one guy who could stop me was down there, I'd have torched him first. Like, not the building in front of him, not the wall across the way. I would have torched the Dragonborn. Now, is that putting up the idea that destiny is more important than personal desire? Like, it's not overcomable. What you're destined to be is what you're destined to be, and that's unstoppable by anyone.
Okay, we're getting way too deep now.
The silence was deafening.
Getting way too deep now. Holy shit. That's an interesting way to look at it.
I don't know. That's the weird thing of being a film student is looking at... That's a big thing, though, if you look at stories in original games. Original games were purely just meant to be a task to complete. The idea if you get to the end of a platformer level, or in Sonic, you get to the end of a track, basically, that kind of thing.
Yeah. When
you look at games when the visual art became huge, when you look at the original couple Elder Scrolls games, when they became three-dimensional, when Doom became three-dimensional, when you came it almost had to become like film. It was the idea of, this isn't a cartoon anymore. We're becoming so realistic, we need to make it a story, like an actual readable, imaginable story, more than just, here's A, here's B, there's all the shit in between, get to it. I think that's the thing, that anything that becomes visually stunning, the writing and the story have to become more stunning with it. And that's exactly, like, okay, here's a good example. When you look at original films from the 1910s and 20s, everything is shot like it's on a theater stage. There's only, the world is two-dimensional. Everything goes from left to right or right to left. When you look at cinema now, the camera moves. Everything's three-dimensional in that space. The camera can go in and out of a scene. The characters can come in and out of a scene without exiting left and right. They can exit towards the camera. They can go out of a door and go away from the camera. Things can become from small to big and big to small. I think that's what you get with the three-dimensional verse of video games, is the same thing you got with the three-dimensional verse of film. The idea of stories had to become complicated to complement the technology that got them there.
Yeah. Gaming news.
And nothing against 20 minutes of that rant, but I feel like we need to end on something current and substantial.
Video game addiction.
That's weird to me. That's so... Like, that's right up there with when Utah called porn, like, a public health crisis. Like, it's really not, though.
Video game addiction. The difference between a hobby and a disorder.
It didn't make any... Like, that argument is just stupid. Like...
This literally started when some mom said I was really pissed off that my son spent all of his time playing Fortnite. Fortnite is a disorder.
Fortnite is a disorder. No, but that's like, but I think I've noticed that though, like, and we go through phases like this.
I think they can be. Once again, it's.
I think it's
like everything in life.
You need to take it in moderation. Everything should be taken in moderation.
Yeah.
Like I don't game every night I'm on my computer. I might be on my computer, but I'm not gaming on it every night.
Yeah.
I think it's, and if that's an issue, then you can, like, my parents when we were younger and we first got our PS2, we each got 30 minutes a day. Like,
same.
We put out like a timer on the microwave, and when it went off, your 30 minutes were up. My brother was smart and would play for 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. You get to play 3 times a day. I played for 30 minutes straight, and then didn't get to play again. But I think that's one way to look at it. Just learn to diversify what you're doing with your off time. And if you just have a lot of off time, there's nothing wrong with that. But think about other constructive things to do. Like, think of, like, okay, can I organize my gaming space? Because I didn't think about this till well into having a console. But if you organize your gaming space, it almost makes you, it's not that it makes you doesn't want to be there. It makes you want to organize other stuff too. Like, the one thing that's not supposed to be organized in your life is organized now. Now, like, other stuff can be organized. Like, yeah. It's a weird inspiration moment. And I get my desk has a bunch of shit on it right now, and I respect that. But that's just because at the end of every week, I just, like, scrape it all off into the garbage and send it.
And in other news, Overwatch players raised almost $13 million to fight breast cancer with the Pink Mercy campaign.
I bought the Pink Mercy skin.
I did not. I'm a terrible person. Kill me.
That doesn't make you a terrible person. Like, I don't think just because you don't support charitable causes makes you a terrible person. Now, if you went around saying, I think charitable causes are stupid and we shouldn't give money away, that would make you a terrible person.
Yeah.
Like, inactively participating in charity and then actively participating in charity, I don't equalize them, but I don't think it makes you a lesser person. Now, if you go around saying charities are bad and they kill people, then you're starting to draw a line in the sand of, like, I don't want to go to public places anymore. I
mean, I don't, but
that's beside the point. I think I don't mind when games do that, though. Like,
yeah,
and it's good for the game too, because it shows that they're looking to the community to help with their cause. I mean, Rooster Teeth does the same thing. That's all Extra Life is here's this specific merch that's available for the Extra Life stream, and you buy it. I bought that this year too. I bought and that's my new tradition now. I don't buy Rooster Teeth merch. I'm just gonna buy the Extra Life t-shirts. Because they're like they're the same price as the others, but you get like the t-shirt and the poster, which I still have to hang the poster I got. I haven't hung my Roosterland poster yet. It's still in my closet because I'm probably gonna hang it in my office, honestly, because I don't have anything on the walls in here. So,
for all the Warframe fans out there, it's heading to your Nintendo Switch.
I saw that. Congratulations. I've never played Warhammer before. No, Warframe. My bad. Warframe.
I'm not stupid. I played like 30 minutes of it. It was okay. I didn't get sucked into it like a lot of people have.
There are games I would never play on PC or like old consoles that I kind of want to play on my Switch now because I liked, like, L.A. Noire worked really well on the Switch. Yeah. I loved the shit out of it on the Switch. I loved having to be able to just pop in a game and be like, all right, she walked into the bar. Like, just go into a noir kind of setting. But, like, Wolfenstein is like that. Like, I just ordered Wolfenstein today, and it's like, I've never played a Wolfenstein game. It's on the Switch. I kind of want to try it. Like, it's fun to have on the run. Like, I have Fallout Shelter on my Switch. I have it on my Switch, my phone, and my tablet now. And on my PC. I have Fallout Shelter, because it's free, on every single device I own at this point.
And one more piece of news to go off something we talked about earlier with the Burger Man in the middle of Nevada. Real-life loot llamas from Fortnite are appearing all over Europe.
I think they're coming up on a big reveal, which a lot of people have been hinting at. Like, the burger thing is a good example. And I think they want people to find them. I think it's kind of... It's almost like a challenge coin, in a way. Like, if you find one, like, hey, you're out there looking. It's like geocaching in a really rookie sense, because they're big items that are really recognizable, instead of a box in the ground 6 miles out into the woods. I
actually have the picture right here, so I'm gonna save it.
Just DM it to me and I can put it in.
Yeah,
I'll put in a picture of the burger too.
He's just sitting in a fucking telephone booth.
That's fucking awesome that they put him in the booth.
Yep.
You know, somebody was looking back at like their CCTV footage from outside their shop and they were like, "What the fuck?
What the fuck? Who put a llama here?"
Van with a llama. All right, so that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you for coming back and watching Hell If I Know, episode 6. We're hoping to keep this going for as long as possible. Hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, because we went all over the place about stories and gaming and history and film. I didn't expect to talk about film today, but I did. Hope you guys come back next week, and I hope you Have a great day and a great week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.